Today I'm going to be walking you through how I set up a guitar amp, from the gain structure to what to listen for. I have 3 amps today, 3 really cool amps, and I want to be playing these amps, a pre-recorded guitar track that's being reamped into these amps, and I'll be right in front of your eyes, kind of tweaking them and talking about what I'm listening for. And I have a stereo ribbon mic to do a super realistic impression of what I'm hearing in the room so that you get an idea. These are not going to be close mic today. They're going to be the microphone is 4 or 5 feet out. So I hope you join with me today on how to set up a guitar amp and the gain structure, all the cool stuff about getting great tones from the amp. Okay, so this is a really cool episode, and guitar recording is not just about mic placement. It's not about necessarily the selection of the mic, but it's just about the basic fundamentals. I mean, if you don't choose the right guitar for the part, then you're going to be fighting uphill the whole way on your guitar tone. If it needs a telly, then use a telly. If it needs a Les Paul, then use something like it. Use something with a humbucker in it, but don't try to use a telly for a Les Paul type tone or an SG tone, or you have to use the right tool for the job. And this is no different. We just want to simply make sure that we are getting the best tone out of this amp, that it's set correctly. Gain staging is so important because if we don't set the gain right, then one side or another is going to be working too hard. So you want to make sure that each stage is pushing the volume and doing its part. If we have a really, really quiet, preamp stage and we have, say, a master volume, trying to overdrive, it's going to sound different than if we push the input of the guitar amp with maybe the volume of the guitar and turn down a master volume. So there's different ways to set up the amp, and this is really what we're talking about today. Typically, you have your ultra clean tone, you have your compression that kicks in, then you have your overdrive, and then you have your resonance point that typically comes in when you add a little more juice. And from there, it kind of flattens out. It doesn't get a whole lot louder. It just kind of stays the same but gets even dirtier. Okay, so here's the Gretsch. Let's go ahead and give it a go here. Just add some gain. You can see that it's really not a whole lot of play on the dial here. So I'm going to go over to the reamp box on the floor that's feeding the signal and turn down the volume here, maybe about 20% or so, to see if that gives me a little more range on the dial here. Okay, so you can see that I'm able to turn the dial literally right across, 10 o'clock, 2 o'clock kind of area. It's really set pretty nice. And this, what I basically did was turn down the volume of the guitar. And instead of driving the preamp tubes, what I'm doing is I'm able to not let the preamp tubes work quite as hard and let the output tubes get some of that work, kind of share the load a little bit. Now I'm plugged into the bass channel. Various amps will have various inputs, 1, 2, 3, or unassigned or labeled as even microphone or harmonica. This amp, the bass channel, for some reason sounds really great. I can try this input in a minute here, but you'll have to just experiment with the different inputs if it's not a Fender Classic, 1, 2, or whatever. But we can see here right off the bat we have a range of compression and overdrive. Let me just kind of play around with that and point out some things as I hear them. So it's about 10 o'clock. It's still pretty clean. So about 12 o'clock noon, it starts to compress pretty nicely. So really about 12 o'clock noon actually is really overdrive. Okay, so really this amp is kind of a very specific sound for a very specific purpose. So has a really nice tremolo here. It's very subtle, and it's really great for just compressing and subtle overdrive. That's just really creamy and kind of sinks into itself. Great sound, great amp. Let's go ahead and see what this other input sounds like. So right there, looks like we have clean at 9, compression at about 10 or 11, and overdrive, kind of a nice subtle overdrive at noon. So you can see anywhere between noon to 4 o'clock, it's really not adding any volume. That's just the nature of the beast of the limits of the amp and the tubes and stuff. So really cool amp. Let's go on to the Gibson BR6. Okay, so we're here behind the BR6, and this is a really cool amp. Kind of like the Gretsch, it's really just one kind of sound, a one-trick pony, but a really cool sound at that. You'll find that as I kind of pull it up for you here, that this is kind of the clean, the compression, the overdrive, and really it gets kind of weird on this area over here, kind of pushing the limits of 1950s amp. So I really kind of keep it more between the 6 and 8 range. But you can really hear the coloration. This is an old field coil speaker. It's not a typical, conventional speaker. This is field coil. And let's see here. There's a transformer built right into it. So it's a different design of a current, Alnico type magnet, things like that. So it is a different sound and just a really old design. But this is a really cool amp. Let's have a listen to this here. It's a really cool amp here. really, really cool sound. You just got to know, when is too far, when is too less, and really just to dial in the sweet spot. Let me kind of show you what this sounds like if I push it a little too far. So you can hear I push it about 8.5, 9, and it really starts to cave in. Keep it at 8, I get the full volume, the punch, the flavor, all the low end is still there. So you have to just really know what to look for and when too far is too far. Okay, so right off the bat, I can hear that it's actually kind of compressing at about between 3 and 4. Depending on what my settings are over here, the bass will definitely change this, but I can really hear that between 3 and 4, it's starting to compress. 4 and 5 is starting to break up. So we can hear that it's starting to compress about 3, and then it's overdriving here, and then it gets really kind of noisy towards the top end. Let's listen one more time, and then I'll move on to input 2. Okay, we were at 4.5. Okay, so something important happened there is that if we need a wider range, because this compression zone is so tight, I mean, literally we're talking between, 2 numbers on the dial here, is that we can go out of 1 and into 2 and extend that range, that sweet spot. If you notice that the effect of switching inputs was almost like turning down the main gain here. So this gives us a bigger sweet spot, and it greatens when the overdrive would come in. So it basically widens the area of clean tone. So let's try that again, and I'll take it up to the point of compression. So you can hear that the area that I'm able to use is pretty wide for finding my tone for this particular amp. Of course, these are going to vary. It's going to obviously, this is going to add more considering that it's a lot of the energy of, electronics and sound. So adding low end will eat up headroom, add more gain basically to a circuit. That's really how to set up something like this. This is a clean tone type of amp. It'd be great for pedals. It's Class A, so it's going to reproduce all of the tone out of any sort of pedal setup and really It's a really, really nice amp. So just to review, the various stages of how I set up a guitar amp for the gain staging is first check the output of the guitar and make sure that you're not putting too much signal input into the preamp side of things. From there, you can adjust the main volume of the amp, and this main volume mostly controls those output tubes. It's really going to vary depending on your amp, but the way that I think of it is to control the preamp is with the guitar, to control the output tubes is with the main volume of the amp. Then from there, I just listen. I listen, do I want a completely clean tone that's really kind of spiky? It has lots of jumpy, strumming things to it. Am I going to want a compressed tone, something that's going to naturally sit in the mix using the natural compression that's coming out of the amp? Then from there, do I want a little dirt to it? Do I want to add harmonic con to it, called overdrive, or technically distortion, really distorting the sound to something else, augmenting that sound and adding its own flavor. So that's the overdrive stage. Then from there, it's whether it's involving the cabinet, and then whether the speaker is imparting its own flavor because of the limitations of its design or material or even age. And so really those couple of stages really can affect how your guitar sounds coming out of the amp. So next week, we're going to be talking about recording junk percussion. And in part 1 of this guitar recording series, you may notice some barrels left over from a session. Well, I want to pull those barrels out again and just kind of walk you through some of the cool tricks that I did just to kind of explore tones out of 55-gallon drums. So I'll see you next week.